Welcome to Southwest Florida Real Estate Update, hosted by local realtors Jim, Michael, and Morgan York of the York Real Estate Group of Downing Fry Realty. Our show will bring you the most up-to-date information on the local real estate market, featuring the leading experts in the real estate field.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Southwest Florida Real Estate Update. I'm Michael York with the York Real Estate Group, and I'm joined today by our host Jim York and his guest Cindy Carroll of Carroll and Carroll Appraisers.
Thank you for the introduction, Michael. Well, Cindy, thank you for coming on the show again.
I'm glad to be here.
Well, before we get into what we're really going to talk about today, tell us a little bit about yourself and your company, because I know you're one of the top biggest companies in Naples as an appraiser here in town.
Oh, well, thanks. Thanks for those comments. Carroll and Carroll is a real estate appraisal firm, a multidisciplinary firm that's been in existence for over 30 years now. And my dad and my brother actually started out as the appraisal division of John R. Wood Associates in the late 70s, so we go way, way back. And we have residential and commercial appraisers and offer appraisals for all kinds of purposes and also consulting.
Well, today we're going to dissect really the market. Okay, we got about 10 different items we want to talk about, but more importantly, I think let's talk about what's happened in the last couple of years leading up to where we are today.
All right, and this is all from my point of view, of course.
That's right, of course.
And I'm not an economist or scientist or anything, but this is my take on it.
And you've got your pulse on the market here locally, too.
I like to think so. So in my view, we experienced a top of an economic cycle in the fall of 2015. And we had quite a growth in value from 14 to 15.
That's
but
right.
then it kind of topped out. And then from 15 to 16, we saw our inventories, our overall inventories, start to go back up again.
That's right.
And so as that occurs, it tends to slow the market down. And I think that probably between 14 and 15, we began to see a little bit of a pocket here and there where there might have been a little erosion of value. But from 16 to 17, we saw a huge growth in inventory. Overall market inventory went up about 43%. And that really slowed the market down, slowed the resale market down, which just then has consequences in the new construction market. And then we started to see the effects in the pockets of new construction. A lot of it's focused on the 951-41 hub and the 951 Immokalee Road hub,
Right.
And along the East Trail, where if you had bought in one of those communities in 15 and paid a top dollar retail and you wanted to sell your property in 16 or 17, and you're directly competing with the developer who has every kind of incentive to offer a buyer, you might not get your money back. So we started seeing some of that happen. Now from 2017, we saw the inventory shrink by 9%. So it's interesting to look at that prior year with a 43% increase, and then just this last 12 months to see the inventory now pulling back about 9%. Most of that is in the single-family home market. And it's interesting right now that the single-family home market and the condominium market both have about 7.5 months of supply, which I still see as a little bit of a shortage. I measure supply and demand locally, that if we have 1 year of inventory, then we're looking at a balanced market. And so if you search the MLS for any specific community and you look at the number of active listings and compare that to the number of sales in the last 12 months, if those numbers are about the same, then you've got 1 year of inventory. A balanced market, and a market where values are not going up or down really measurably. Yes. So at 7.5 months of supply in each market, and now we're talking in real general terms.
That's right.
We're not balanced yet. We're still a little bit on the shortage side. Another interesting factor is that when we look at the entire inventory in the MLS of single family and condos, it's about equal number. About 50% of the inventory is resting in those property types. So that's I'm not sure I've seen that before.
Right, that's interesting.
It is interesting.
And what has happened since the Hurricane Irma? What has happened with the market since then?
All of us who watch the market closely were very interested to see the results of post-storm market.
Right.
And certainly we can go back and look at September, October statistics and see a real bump there in terms of the number of sales were down on a monthly basis. But as the year progressed, there seems to have been no residual effect. It's very interesting. All the trends that were in place before the storm have just continued on. And I think part of that is because we did not experience severe structural damage in most of our communities, mostly a vegetation loss.
That's right.
Or a screen enclosure or something like that. And so the market has just continued on, and I'm not really seeing a huge effect.
And let's talk about those areas. Let's talk about East Naples. What are you seeing down? Because there's a lot of growth going on down there.
Lots of growth down the East Trail. If we think about out the East Trail and now out as far as the 951 intersection and beyond, there's a lot of new construction there, but neighborhoods north and south of the trail are also vestiges of affordable housing, some little bit that does remain. Down the East Trail and east of 951 are the two market areas where we're still seeing increases in value. A realistic, measurable increase of like 8 to 9% over the last 12 months. I think that's primarily the affordable housing component, the under $300,000 component that exists in those markets. And of course now it's rolling up into the $300,000 to $400,000 price range. But those are the only geographic areas that are really showing any sort of an increase in value over the last 12 months. All of the other areas have really settled down and are relatively stable in terms of value.
And you're saying that in different price points, or are you saying that in different areas, like downtown Naples? How do you see that? Is the prices leveled out there?
Pretty much, yes.
Pretty much.
The trend is toward a stable market where we're not seeing any strong swing up or down in the prices. The 1 to 2 and 2 million and up price range in the single family home market has been performing pretty well over the last 12 months. And while the median price really hasn't gone up, we've seen the inventory come down as much as 20%. And some of that, I think, is the newly built homes, perhaps spec homes that have been built in the old Naples area and the Moorings, Coquina, Park Shore area that 24, 36 months ago, we were discussing the glut of inventory in that category, somewhere between 2 and 3 years of supply. That market has tightened up very nicely over the last 12 months, so that in both of those geographical areas now, each has just a little over a year of inventory. That's a good thing, and we still have enough season to go that maybe by the time we get to the end of season, we will see a balance of supply and demand in that spec home market too, which is just consistent with the trend I think we're on right now.
Do you see down there people, any new builders or spec homes going up, or you think they're just trying to get rid of their inventory? Do you see any trends there?
All I have to do is drive through Old Naples, and at every turn, something is gone. The builder's sign is on the lot. Something new is going up. All in this coastal, modern, transitional style that is so popular right now. We really saw it emerge, I think, as early as 2006 in the Old Naples market.
Right.
It has a lot of old Florida elements in it, which has always worked well. And if you'll recall now, we had the huge recession, And it wasn't until 2012 before construction started back online again. But when it did, then we started seeing this West Indies coastal modern home popping up everywhere, concentrated in Old Naples and all across Coquina and the moorings and Park Shore. This is the new desirable product that the market wants to buy. And in the process of that, well, almost like overnight,
Right.
the Mediterranean home
Right.
was obsolete.
Yeah,
It seemed like we got up one morning and suddenly we've had a design shift, and now the Mediterranean is out and the modern is in.
It happened fast. The way
It felt like it to me.
To me, it did. I mean, we take people into different style homes, and they wanted the newer. It was a little bit lighter, not as dark, and
Right.
more inviting. That's
Right.
what they're saying. That everybody's got different tastes.
Yes, right,
so.
exactly.
Cindy, we're going to take a little short break here,
Okay.
and we're going to take a little commercial here about the York Real Estate Group, and we'll be right back.
Thinking of buying or selling a home in Naples, Marco Island, Bonita, or Estero, Florida? Think of the most experienced York Real Estate Group, associated with the #1 brokerage in Southwest Florida, Downing Fry Realty, which produces yearly real estate transactions of over $1 billion. Jim, Michael, and Morgan make up the York Real Estate Group of Downing Fry Realty, with over $275 million in sales transactions, along with offering over 25 combined years' experience in the local market. The Yorks can offer the experience and trust you need in a realtor. Call them today at 239-273-6727 or visit their website at www.naplesyorkrealestate.com.
Welcome back. Cindy, we're seeing in MLS a lot of price decreases. So how do you seeing that with your appraisals? And there's a lot more price decreases than there are new houses coming on the market.
I've been noticing that too, and I think that's often a result of when we have a market topped out, as I said in the fall of 2015, and sellers become accustomed to a certain price level,
Right.
and have anticipations of that just continuing.
True.
But it doesn't.
It doesn't.
And sometimes it takes a long time for the market to adjust to the new conditions, because that requires realtors to recognize it and encourage their sellers to reduce their prices, and it requires the sellers being willing to bring those prices down. I think that some of the flurry of activity we've seen in the $1 million and up price range in the single-family home market may be directly related to some of those price adjustments that have got that market moving along and is clearing up some of the oversupply in that category. Another challenge that is faced in the market, and we touched on this a little bit, is the new construction market that exists and how the resale market competes with it. As we see the value stabilizing in the residential market and the developer is still out there building and competing, if you bought in a new community, let's say 2 years ago at the top of the market, and you paid the developer's price and then you paid his price for all of those add-ons and upgrades,
Right.
you've got a big total. You have a big total now, which is a cost total, but is not always equal to value. And then 2 years later, in a different market condition, you want to sell, you know exactly what you paid, but the builder is still out there competing with you directly, and they have new product to offer. And in our market today, we can look in the MLS and see the builders offering all sorts of concessions, $50,000 buyer incentives.
Right.
They're also, the builders are really courting the realtors right now, because some communities will offer a pretty hefty commission to the real estate associate who brings a buyer into the community. So there's a lot of draw to go in and buy the new product, which leaves the existing resale product kind of out in the cold unless it gets its price adjusted down, because it's not new anymore.
No, it's not.
And it's finished out to the likings of the current owner. So I think that for some time, especially in neighborhoods that have 20-year build-outs, the existing home market in those communities will have the developer to deal with. And we could go through 3 market cycles before those communities reach build-out.
Yeah, I've been working recently with a bunch of clients or customers and told them when we're looking at new communities, because they're asking me, there's a lot of homes for sale in here that are just a couple of years old, and you know, we're in a market that, you know, we're elderly people, think life changes, you know, people might, you know, health might, they might not be able to take care of the home or want to move into a different kind of home. And so I told them that maybe, you know, you would buy in the beginning of a new development because you're getting an entry, or towards the end when they're trying to close it out. But kind of if it's in the middle, and like you just said, 20-year build out, you know, you're going to be competing with them. But most people don't think of that when they're buying. You know, they're just, you know, it's an impulse thing.
That's
Maybe,
right.
you know, they want what they want and don't think that something could happen next year.
That's right. And we know we've seen communities that got started and maybe with a really high quality product.
Right.
And then we have a little market downturn and a new builder comes into that community and carries on with a lower quality product. So anything can happen during that build out period for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And then you have, what do you think, we were talking about this off camera a little bit, what do you think about all the membership prices and that? How do you think that's affecting the market?
I hear comments on this all the time. The difficulty of selling homes in communities that have mandatory club memberships. We've been as a country moving away from golf for probably a good decade now.
Right.
And all across the country there are golf courses that are no longer used, that the local communities are trying to get their head around what to do with those properties that don't carry any development rights with them. You know, all the rights have been used up. And now here's this wide expanse of land that cannot be supported by the residents. In Naples, properties in mandatory club memberships just don't compete well with properties that are outside of those kind of communities. There's a big cost burden to owning, and if you're not interested in golf, then you're not interested in paying all those fees to keep that golf course up and running. It especially hurts the entry-level product in that neighborhood, the garden apartments, the smaller units that are sometimes priced less than $200,000.
It's amazing, yeah.
But they're in a community that requires a $45,000 mandatory membership, so it's just not economic. Someone who's interested in buying a condo at less than $200,000 is not interested in paying a $45,000 club membership. And so that is a challenge in our market today.
Yeah, we have an abundance of golf courses here.
We do.
Yeah, we do.
We do.
Yeah.
And the counties already began to struggle with this problem. I think it had at least one golf course come up, which was in Golden Gate City.
That's right.
That actually has development rights attached to it. And for some time now, they've been trying to work out a solution there to allow that to be developed. And I hope that it is developed. It's a great location, and we need more affordable housing, and if the result is that would be fantastic.
Before we end this a little bit, in our last show we did last year, we talked about Ave Maria. What are you seeing out there in the Golden Gate area where, you know, where people, it's a single family home, a couple acres, or what are you seeing happening out there?
Things are just hopping out in the eastern Golden Gate Estates area. As you move east from 951, away from the coast, properties become more affordable. The land value goes down, and then the whole package is just more affordable. There's just a lot going on out there. Land is selling for about 10 cents on the dollar from its top of the market price. So if 2.5 acres sold for $300,000 in 2005, Today, it might be selling for around $30,000. We'll never see it recover to those crazy numbers.
Right.
There's a lot of new construction going on out there.
There is.
There's a lot of spec house construction going on out there.
Yeah.
And Ave Maria shows some pretty phenomenal statistics in terms of sales and values increases. And I'm talking to some of the market participants out that way, and I learned so much because it's a different culture than we are so accustomed to in our coastal markets. The buyers are different. They are sometimes coming from Miami, from the other coast.
That's right.
And it's really fascinating to learn about the whole dynamic going on. And for the first time in Collier County, we're creating this population that is not connected to the coast. And that's kind of a new dynamic for us.
Have you heard of any new developments that's coming online relatively shortly in any of those areas?
In the eastern part of the
Right.
county?
Mhm.
I had been following Rural Lands West, and I need to go back and check on it again because I had heard that not much had happened out there as far as getting started, and I think some of their promotional material spoke of having a product available as early as the fall of 17, but that hasn't happened, so I'm not sure what the plan is right now. But that can have a huge impact on that part of our county.
A big impact.
I think so.
Well, Cindy, I appreciate you coming on the show, and I'm sure our viewers and people that are watching the show, they'll be well informed by you.
Thanks, Jim. It's always my pleasure.
Thank you.